Hi, this is Sue for my journey with Parkinson's. Today I thought I'd talk about an opportunity that I was offered, which I grasped with both hands, and I'm quite excited to hear about. And it's a couple of people that are putting together a book, and they wanted submissions from people about a letter to my newly diagnosed self. What you would have liked somebody to tell you, the hints and tips on how to get through those early stages. And for each of those who wanted to submit, you were asked to write a letter to your newly diagnosed self. And I did that, and it was a really good exercise. When you go to that first appointment, try and take somebody with you if you can. I think that's really important because I know from my social work training that if a person is under stress, they're very much less likely to absorb any information that's provided. And let's face it, when you're in front of a neurologist waiting to hear about a diagnosis, then you're going to be nervous. Of course you're going to be nervous. And it's important that you have somebody there that you can have as a person to have another set of ears, another brain that might be more onto it than ours because they're not perhaps as emotionally invested, and to come out of an appointment that is so challenging, often with that diagnosis of Parkinson's, it's hard to explain how that feels if you haven't gone through it. But I know when I've gone to any appointments without my husband and he says to me, oh, what did he say and why did he say that, and he questions me, and I feel really guilty if I can't give him good information. But I think sometimes I know over the years when I get too much information thrown at me, it's like my brain shuts down and too much information. I can't process all that at once. And so, especially when it's an overwhelming amount of information that perhaps you didn't really want to hear, like, congratulations, you have Parkinson's, then I think your system can shut down and so you don't retain that information. So I would say to my newly diagnosed self, make sure you get the information that you want from that meeting and subsequent meetings. Take a notebook with you. If you can't take a person with you, ask if you can record that meeting so that you can play it back, so that you're not relying on your memory at a time when your memory may not be the best because of stress. So certainly you take somebody with you if you can, or take a notebook, or record with the people's permission who you're in front of. Record that session if you can and be able to play it back so that you don't have to remember to remind yourself of things that have been discussed. Sometimes it does feel when you're in one of these meetings, the neurologist and his team have probably got, I don't know, could be 10 people, maybe more people in a day that they have to see. And so they may be pushed for time. But that does not mean that you have to go with their timetable. There is nothing in the appointment that says that you have 10 minutes or you have 5 minutes. Take with you a notebook in which you have written any questions about why you're getting some symptoms, whether medication will be right for you. For me, because I was a social worker and because I am who I am, I naturally need to know everything possible out of a meeting like that. And I will go in with a list of questions about, is it hereditary? Should I get my children to be tested? Are there testing things for my children or my grandchildren or whoever in the family? Because my mum and dad both had it. I know that I asked a question at my first appointment, but there may be things that are important to you that you'd like to ask. So write them down to ask and write in that notebook at the meeting. Don't let them fob you off with, yes, you definitely have Parkinson's, thank you very much, goodbye, because they need to get on to the next person. It's important that you get what you need out of your appointment, and it's not about that next person. They can battle their own battle. The other thing that I found really helpful was to start a journal. I didn't quite do that. What I did was I set up my blog, which is Parkies and Me, My Journey with Parkinson's. And if you put that in, it'll come up my blog. And I think it's well worth a read, and people have said that it's been useful to them to hear from somebody else that's going through Parkinson's, and to know that it can be okay. You can still do things that you need to do. And mostly it's a very positive thing. But if you don't want to look at my blog and read my blog, then do one of your own, or do a journal or something where you can note down how you're feeling. And I know when I look back over my blog posts, which I do sometimes, I look at the ones that I put in place earlier And they're really good to reread because my whole sort of viewpoint, my way that I look at the world changes over time according to how things are going. So it's really obvious to me when I look at my first post when I first started out, how much I grew into a feeling of, if not acceptance, something like acceptance, of this is my lot and I can't escape from it, but what can I do about it? How can I live positively with Parkinson's? So yeah, writing things down is really helpful for me, and I'm sure most of you would find the same thing. The other thing I'd recommend is look into podcasts about Parkinson's. Now, Michael J. Fox is my absolute hero because of his Parkinson's and what he's done for the Parkinson's community and for study and research. Michael J. Fox has done a lot. So have a look on his website. He has some people on there that have given interviews about their journey with Parkinson's, how their own special brand is, as individuals, manifests itself, what their challenges are, what their successes are, how they live their daily life with Parkinson's. And it is well worth listening to some of those, because Parkinson's does not have to be the everything in your life. It does not have to take over. It does not have to swamp you. It's going to be part of your life, but it's like having a hitchhiker that never gets off. They are part of your life whether you want it or not, and they are going to be there. And it's whether you give them the space to be everything in your life, or whether you give them the space to pop up every now and again and remind you that you have Parkinson's and that you need to look after yourself better, perhaps. So yeah, looking after yourself is important. For me, making social connections was really important, so that as a person who's naturally quite social, when I gave up work, I didn't have to concern myself with sitting at home all day just fretting and being lonely. What I would recommend to my newly diagnosed self is don't isolate yourself. Don't just stay at home. Make sure that you're in contact with friends you already have, and maybe do some things that give you the opportunity to meet new people and develop some strong social relationships. To me, that's been really important to be able to do that. And the other thing that I would say, anybody that's newly diagnosed, please, if you can, don't keep it to yourself. Don't try and hide it from the world, because Parkinson's is huge in your life when you first get diagnosed. It can be all you think about and all you worry about. And to try also to hide that Parkinson's, the symptoms, maybe the tremors, whatever is exhibiting for you, trying to hide that from people because you haven't told them is another stress, quite frankly, I don't think we need. I told people immediately that I had been diagnosed, the very day that I had been diagnosed. And for me, it was a relief. I worked in a neurological ward, of all things. And so if anybody was going to pick up on the fact that Sue is acting a bit differently these days, it would be my team. So I thought it's better to let them know, and that I could still be functioning, but that they would have to make certain, certain adjustments in what they expected of me. I would continue to try to do the best job that I could, but they needed to know that I had slowed processing, that I didn't think as quickly as some of them, that they needed to be patient with me. And so I was really open so that I could say, I have Parkinson's, this is how it manifests with me, and this is what I need from you as a team, so that I can still remain as a valuable and functional person within this team. And that was important. So yeah, tell people so that you don't have to hide it and have that stress. I would say as well, when I was newly diagnosed, the very first day, not only did I tell work, but I went straight and told my children. My daughter lives here where I do, and I have a son in Wellington. And so I rang and talked to them both and told them the news. And it gave me, pretty early on, almost immediately, my priorities in life changed. Now, my husband and I have always been a very tight unit, and we haven't really needed anybody else in our lives. We were humming along quite happily, and I saw my grandchildren, I saw my children, but probably not as often as I could have. And so I vowed that I would be a better nana and a better mum and make an actual effort to regularly see my grandchildren, to regularly see my children, my adult children. And that was important to me. I wanted to make sure that we had time spent together of value, and that we made some good memories together, and so we did, and we still do. Another thing that I'd say to newly diagnosed me, try not to focus on the things you can't do, the challenges that may seem all too challenging. Perhaps, if you can, take stock and think, I can still ride a bike, I can still work, I can still write poetry. Poetry's been a huge part of my life. So I can still write poetry. It's funny poetry, it's not the serious type by any means. But it is something that I treasure, the ability to be able to do that. So I focus on that sometimes, and I write poems from time to time. I haven't done any for a wee bit, for a week or two, but they will come. And you focus on those things that you can do. Focus on the fact that you've got a good support network if you have. If not, focus on organising one, making sure that you get one, because you will need one at some stage. I would also say that getting somebody that you could talk to that has Parkinson's can be really useful. We became part of a Parkinson's peer support group that meets once a month, and we're all in the early stages, and we've known each other for several years now. And sometimes in that group you don't talk about Parkinson's much at all. And we might talk about the rugby or the Football World Cup or something like that. We'd talk about all sorts of things, and we might throw in some discussions like about how we travelled to the UK a few months ago and what that was like with Parkinson's. What did I notice differently from the previous trips to the UK? Things like that. And sometimes I think new people have come to the group and they haven't stayed very long. And I think part of that is because they might have come along and we were talking about everything but Parkinson's. But that is important. It is important that our lives are not just about Parkinson's, because it isn't. We have other facets of our life that are important to us as well. And I want to push Parkinson's into the background, not into the foreground. It can leave me alone, thank you very much as possible in my daily life while I can do that. And it's something that has to be attended to, but I will not make my life all about it. So the peer group, we are building relationships over time so that if at some stage things get tricky, perhaps my husband might want to pull one of the husbands aside and say, hey, this is happening with Sue. What do you do? Have you faced this? And he will have people that he'll feel comfortable talking to. So that to me is important and valuable, to be part of a peer support group where you've gained trust over time for when you need somebody to talk to. One thing that I did a couple of years ago was I've been working in a stressful job as a social worker in a hospital, and it was a very stressful, very responsible job, and you needed to basically have your wits about you. And I said to one of my friends, can you please promise me that if I start not performing as you know I would like to perform, if I'm dropping the ball, if I'm not keeping up, if you think basically I should think about retiring or whatever, can you please tell me? And she reluctantly agreed. The time came where she asked me to have a coffee with her after our morning meeting, and I thought, that's nice, we have a nice coffee. And she sat down and she said to me, Sue, quite some time ago now, you asked me to tell you when things weren't going well, and I promised that I would. And she said, I think that time is here. And she started to tell me things that she'd been noticing. And as she said them, I thought, yep, I can recognise that, and yes, I can recognise that. And you could see she was quite stricken and struggling with having to tell me this stuff. And I think it was harder for her than it was for me. And we've laughed about it since. You looked almost terrified that you were having to say this to me. I could tell you felt really bad. But you did me the biggest favour by telling me, because it let me leave at a time that suited me before I got to the point where everybody's saying, who's going to tell Sue? She just needs to not be here anymore. So she did me the biggest favour ever, and I thank her every time I see her. So have that one friend, if you're still working, have that one friend or two friends or a gang of ladies or guys that you hang out with that know you, and especially at work. It will be important to you, I'm sure, as it was with me, to do my best in my work environment. And so if you can cultivate a friend at work that you trust that will say to you, hey, I think things are getting a bit tough and it's not working out for the work environment or for you. I think you need to consider basically retiring, or medical retirement, or whatever you wanted to call it. The time has come to not be working anymore. And I feel that the person that did this for me gave me the greatest gift. I was able to retire with my dignity intact before somebody really got disadvantaged by my input. So yeah, these are just a few things that I would say to my newly diagnosed self. But most of all, what I would say is, you are still you. Never forget that. And also try and find the joy in life, because there will always be opportunities to find that, I'm sure. Celebrate the wins. Don't focus on the things that are too hard. And just remember, you're still an important person, with or without Parkinson's. You are still you. So do check out my blog. It has about 6 years worth of information about my life. There's things about legal aspects, all sorts of things, right from my beginnings as a newly diagnosed person. And it's www.parkiesandme.com. That's parkiesandme.com. My journey with Parkinson's. So thank you for listening. I hope you'll check out my blog. So kia kaha, be brave, be strong, be you.